Well, hostels in South Africa have been notorious for high levels of violence and crime. The Glebelands hostel is one such example of the culture that many people feel it represents. Here in Gauteng, in Mamelodi West, residents say the Premier, David Makhura, is neglecting them. They say he's not fulfilling promises to refurbish hostels to make them more livable. To many others, hostels are, of course, a reminder of the apartheid spatial planning in the urban areas when migrant mine workers were forced to live there. Well, to discuss what progress is being made about plans to transform hostels, I'm joined in the studio by Sthenjwa Ngcobo, Chief Director at the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements. Mr. Ngcobo, good morning, and thank you very much for your time. This week, the Premier of Gauteng, David Makhura, when he delivered the State of the Province address in Ga-Rankuwa, also making reference once more to the need to improve the living conditions of the urban areas. There's all kinds of plans to make sure that going forward with more livable conditions. Let's just focus on the hostels now, because now and again we are getting information to say some of the people like in Soweto who live around hostels are not happy, and some hostel dwellers actually were planning to march against the SOPA this week in Ga-Rankuwa because they say they're being neglected, there have been promises made before. Where are we at in terms of the hostels program? Two levels. One, restoring them or refurbishing them and transforming them into family units.
Thank you very much, sir. And I think this opportunity is welcomed, so that probably we can utilize this window to clarify a couple of things with regards to the hostel redevelopment program of the Gauteng Department of Human Settlement. I think it is important to note that the program and the intention of government is not to refurbish hostels. But because if you refurbish, you are just painting, fixing windows, and make sure that the status quo remains. There was such a program as the first initial intervention by government in the late 90s. That program was followed by a program called Community Residential Unit, the CRUs, which was a program that intended to afford a hostel resident family units on a rental basis. But here in Gauteng, it was discovered that probably through various challenges, including consultations and high rentals, the hostel residents were unhappy about it. And the government then took a step back to say, how then do we begin to deal with this? The intervention now as an alternative to CRUs is to build fully subsidized walk-up units, multi-level, 2 stories, 3 stories, and even 4 stories, because we want to densify. There's no land in Gauteng, and utilize as much as possible the space that is in and around the hostels themselves. So we are going to be redeveloping hostels, getting rid of single-sex dormitories that were built by Apartheid government, making sure that we replace those with family units that are livable, that are providing space for families, children, and everybody.
Where is that new alternative program at as we speak?
Currently, it is important to note that work in this regard is actually going on in a couple of hostels as we speak.
Can you give us a few examples?
The example would be Glebelands Hostel, for an example. In Soweto, where that is actually going on. And also there is a hostel in the inner city, Johannesburg, Retabile Hostel, where about 229 units will be completed by the end of the financial year, and the provincial department will be working with the city to ensure...
This financial year?
This financial year. And as we start the beginning of the new financial year, the provincial department will be working with the city of Joburg to ensure that there's connection of water and so on and things like that.
Okay, I mean, but you know that we've got many hostels.
Yes.
I've just mentioned the one in Mamelodi
in
West.
Mamelodi, yeah.
And there's, you got in Wattville, in Ekurhuleni, that's all part of Gauteng.
Yeah, there's about 68 of them.
68 hostels
in the province.
You've only mentioned 2. So what is a plan of action to expedite, but without undermining the quality, of course, of the infrastructure development? What's the plan there?
In this 6th administration, the government has prioritized about 22 hostels that are going to be getting attention. Of course, human settlement projects and development get to be realized through various stages. You need to do pre-feasibilities, you need to do some pre-planning assessments, socio-economic surveys to understand the social status of people, and then you do town planning activities that must be there, engineering designs, and you package the project until it is ready for construction. So there are various stages that are there in relation to this 20.
You decided in this administration you're going to focus on 22.
On 22.
This is in addition to Jabulani and the CBD one.
No, that is part of
that's part of that.
Yes.
Okay, but you are aware that there's kind of socio-economic pressures around hostels.
Yes.
Including claims by local residents that they don't feel safe sometimes. I mean, your human settlements, I know you're not from the police, but when you improve a human settlement, it's got good benefits and advantages.
Yes.
And I guess you would understand the importance of fast-tracking the process.
That is extremely important. And also the approach when we develop a hostel, we want to break down the boundaries, ideological and physical, of the hostels themselves and integrate the community so that we begin to realize the social cohesion that we've always been talking about.
Yeah, because up to now, I mean, I grew up next to Nansfield Hostel in Soweto, and we regarded the people who were living in the hostel dwellers as others.
Yes.
They were not part of us in the community. So the plan going forward is to ensure that there's some kind of integration.
Yes, to promote that social integration, so that part of the reason why we would want to understand the number of people that are within and around the hostel is to ensure that when we develop, we don't just, if for an example in a hostel there are about 1,000 people, we're not going to build 1,000 family units. We will have to build more than that so that the uptake of these units is spread around the hostel and beyond into the world.
Are you anticipating problems or challenges in terms of negotiation? Because currently the hostels have been living in their own world with local residents. I'm just using that kind of description for this conversation, saying, but the hostels are havens of crime, the stuff that's wrong that's going on there, and the hostel dwellers feeling like they are not part of the community. Are you going to be talking to the leaders in the hostels, the community leaders, and be they traditional leaders, be they the local community leaders, to make sure that even the local communities understand the end game?
In fact, that is already happening. In most of the hostels that we have targeted, there's constant communication with the leadership, and we locate and anchor that communication and engagement at the ward level. So you'll have a ward councillor that would be there, and you'll have the hostel leadership that is there.
Are they collaborating well at this stage? Are you finding that there's positive cooperation?
There's positive cooperation in many areas. Of course, a lot of work needs to happen in terms of social facilitation is never easy. There will always be those who want to, still hold on to the past and so on. You need to navigate those terrains quite well.
Now, from an infrastructure development perspective, who's budgeting for this?
There are two grants that are going to be assisting in this particular development. There's Human Settlement Development Grant that comes directly from the National Department of Human Settlements to the Provincial Department of Human Settlement. That is responsible for building what we call top structures, the actual houses that you see. And then there is the USDG, the Urban Settlement Development Grant, that goes to metros, directly to metros, and it doesn't via the province. The purpose of that grant is to ensure the construction and the availability of bulk infrastructure,
How much are we
sewer
talking
network,
about?
and so on.
About?
This financial year, on the aspect of the HSDG, the Human Settlement Development
national
Grant,
one.
yes, the top structure one.
Top structure.
The one that comes from national to province. We've budgeted about 120 million to actually deal with this problem.
Is this for the 22 hostels?
Yes, but of course it will spread according to the stage at which the project is in. It's not 120 divided by 22
I understand.
And average it. No.
Okay.
It will be like, for example, Jabulani is at this stage. How much money do we need to actually fast track the delivery of units?
And then you disperse those funds at that point?
Yes.
Okay. The one that goes to the metros?
The national department takes that directly to the metros. The metros, I may not be au fait about the actual figures in that regard, but we know that that function needs to assist in bringing the bulk services. But you must remember as well that there are non-metros towns, smaller towns and so on.
And some of those
your
68 hostels
so
in Gauteng are there in the smaller towns.
Your Kagisos, your Kutsong, and in the West Rand. And these are the municipalities that do not receive this USDG. And it is incumbent on the provincial department working with the municipality to ensure that still the bulk is available for the provincial department to actually do construction.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sthenjwa Ngcobo, for clarifying that. We will touch base with you as it goes on, because the hostel issue is sort of rearing its head again in terms of pressures on local communities who feel that they really need to be turned into family units ASAP and integrated so that all kinds of challenges like crime, for example, are easily manageable. We'll touch base again with you as you progress in implementing your first phase of the 22.
We will definitely welcome that.
Thank you very much. That's Sthenjwa Ngcobo. He's the Chief Director at the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements. In other news,